Is Redding, California actually a hidden gem, or is there a reason people hesitate before moving here? I get that question all the time, especially from people who are thinking about relocating and wanting the real story, not just the polished version. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Rooted in Redding. I'm Faith Barrett, your local guide to everything here in Redding, California. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and comment below your thoughts as we share weekly videos about Redding and the housing market as a whole. And as always, we are not only here to help you find a home, but a community to thrive in. Today we're breaking it down, the good, the challenging, and the things that might genuinely surprise you about Redding. So let's kick it off with the top 5 things. Number 1 is heat, smoke, and fire. We're going to start off with the climate because this is usually the first shock and what takes most people kind of an adjustment to our area. Redding has a hot summer Mediterranean climate, so the summers can be very hot, very dry, and the hot season runs roughly from mid-June through late September with average highs above 90 degrees. Now, July, you're going to start seeing those temperatures really kick up around 100 and sometimes even 100 plus. And in July of 2024, we hit 119 degrees. It was definitely memorable. But we also get about 88% possible sunshine each year, which means you don't get many cloudy, cool down days to break things up. Now, obviously, the dry heat definitely contributes to the wildfire risk that we have here in our area. And in a 2025 national analysis, Redding ranked 12th in the country for the number of homes at moderate or severe wildfire risk. And a lot of that has to do with the natural vegetation that we are surrounded by, as well as the devastating car fire that hit our area in 2018. So you should be aware that the fire season and smoke are really a real part of our life here in Redding. Now, to be fair, California as a whole ranks really high for wildfire risk, and we're in the middle of a broader insurance crisis that we've talked about many times throughout our channel. But because Redding is surrounded by rural terrain, hills, and open land, it carries its own weight when it comes to the fire exposure. Now, on the flip side of things, that same climate gives you long lake days, river floats, hiking, mountain biking, and outdoor access almost year-round. If you love sun and you don't mind heat, this feels less like a drawback and more like an outdoor playground. And I will say, last year was one of the most balanced summers we have had in, I think, ever. We had some higher temperatures, but not those long, relentless heat streaks. And fingers crossed we get lucky again for this summer. You never know. And then surprisingly, we also had a relatively mild fire season locally last year, so we didn't experience much smoke. But because we're surrounded by rural areas, if a fire breaks out in like southern Oregon or in the mountains way outside our immediate area, that smoke can drift down and settle in the valley. And even if there isn't an active fire right here in Redding, we definitely can experience the smoke because of that. And another thing I'd like to add is that Redding is really, 4 seasons. We definitely experience the winter, the spring, the summer, the fall. And so that's kind of the beauty of Redding, but the heat can be a huge adjustment or a major turnoff for some people. Now, number 2 is jobs, economy, and pace of life. Redding is the main urban center for far northern California, but it's still a smaller metro. The city population sits in the low 90,000s, and to be honest with you, our growth has been a bit stagnant for many years. Major employers are healthcare systems, public schools, local and county government, and service industries. We just don't have a large tech or corporate finance sector. So that basically means that we have fewer higher paying white-collar corporate tracks compared to the Sacramento or even the Bay Area. For someone who needs a dense job market in a specialized field, that might be a real limitation here. But here's the upside. Commutes are usually under 20 minutes, traffic is pretty minimal, and most of what you need is just a short drive away. So if you're retiring, a remote worker, or maybe you fall into the work class that we described above, like the healthcare system, the public schools, this slower rhythm is a huge quality of life perk to many who want to live here in Redding. Now, if you're climbing a big city career ladder, this might feel a bit limiting, and if income is portable, it could be pretty freeing here in Redding. Now, number 3 is politics, conservatism, and the civic climate. Now, let's talk about something most people don't always expect, Shasta County is one of the more conservative counties in California. Republican voter registration outnumbers Democratic registration here, which is very different from statewide picture. In recent election cycles, the county has consistently voted for Republican candidates by majorly wide margins. And in the past few years, it's drawn statewide and even national attention over debates surrounding election administration and other governance decisions. Now, here's what's important to understand. Because we are a smaller, predominantly conservative community, a lot of the public debate isn't necessarily conservative versus liberal. Often it's conservative versus more hardline conservative viewpoints. So some of the tension you see locally is actually internal debate about direction and approach. In a smaller region like Redding, those disagreements can feel pretty amplified. Now, the same voices show up, meetings get attention, and discussions can feel more intense than you would expect for a city this size. For some, the level of civic engagement is energizing. For others, it's a lot. But it's part of the civic climate here and something worth being aware of if you're considering a move to our area. Now, religion is also visible here. There are many churches for a city this size, and large congregations like Bethel Church have a noticeable presence in nonprofits, the arts, and part of the local business community. Because of the reach of larger non-denominational churches like Bethel, our area draws people from literally all over the world, whether they're visiting, attending the affiliated school, or coming in for weekend conferences and events. Now, with all these different organizations and churches, for some, that's exactly what they're looking for options. For others, it definitely can feel different than what they're used to. Redding has a distinct civic personality. It's not trying to be San Francisco or LA or the big city. And depending on your expectations, that can either really feel refreshing or a little out of step. Now, number 4 is cost of living and housing. So let's talk numbers. We have discussed in great detail about neighborhood tours, the price, and the cost of living, but the overall cost of living is about 10 to 11% higher than US average, but it is significantly lower than the California statewide average. Housing typically ranges from the upper 300,000 into the 600,000 depending on neighborhood and data source, and the average apartment rents are generally in the mid 1,300 range per month. Now, utilities and groceries are slightly above national average, but below major California metros. So no, it's not cheap, but this is still California. But for someone moving from San Jose or LA or the Bay Area, where median prices are well into the 7 figures, Redding can feel dramatically more attainable. And that's why we see Bay Area equity coming north, people wanting mountains, rivers, and breathing room without the coastal price tag. I really feel like it's all relative, and I feel like Redding really offers a sense of affordability for those that want or need to stay in California without having to pay a major ticket price on housing. And number 5 is amenities, nightlife, and the base camp lifestyle that Redding has to offer. Now, I will be honest about amenities and nightlife. Redding has a population around 90,000 people, and our median household income isn't extremely high compared to larger California metro areas. So when people ask why don't we have, more luxury retail, high-end restaurants, or packed entertainment districts, well, part of the answer is just simply economics. For a business to survive, it has to match what the market can realistically support. And running a business in California with high operating costs, labor regulations, insurance challenges, and overall overhead is really not easy. So keeping doors open here takes grit. I will say we are growing. We're seeing more restaurants, more local concepts, and more things to do than we've ever seen in 5 or 10 years. But growth in a smaller market happens carefully and sometimes slower than most would want, because it has to pencil out kind of like the public market and the amount of years that took to start developing. So nightlife here is modest. We have great local restaurants and breweries, but it's not a dense entertainment scene. But I feel like we're slowly getting on the horizon. Cultural diversity is lower than coastal cities, and that shows up in cuisine variety and large-scale events. Now, for other categories of amenities that are important, things like the Redding Airport has been definitely growing in the routes it offers, even with its one-terminal airport. They offer direct flights to LA, Denver, San Francisco, and Seattle, and for some travelers or people that live here, that's more than enough and saves them from driving to Sacramento or the Bay Area. I will tell you all, I have flown out of Redding a handful of times, and it is literally the greatest thing ever. Like, you get off and you're, back home in 10, 15 minutes, the tickets aren't really as, astronomical as some would think with a smaller airport. And I think they do a really good job of balancing, the cost to still make it affordable for it being a smaller airport. But on the flip side, depending on the destination, a trip to Sacramento or, San Francisco still has to be part of the plan. Now, for somebody who thrives on concerts every weekend and an endless rotation of new spots to try, this may feel a little quieter here in Redding. However, being plugged into the community to know about the local happenings and what is on the horizon will be a huge part of your success in thriving here if you choose Redding as home. I really like to look at Redding functioning as a base camp city. Within a short commute, you've got the lakes, the Sacramento River Trail, boating, fishing, hiking, camping, and mountain biking. And depending where you live, that lifestyle can sometimes literally be right out your back door. So instead of building your social life around clubs and high-rise rooftops, you're building it around trailheads, backyard barbecues, and community-scale gatherings. And for some, that is definitely going to be a compromise, and for others, that is exactly the point as to why they're moving to Redding. So is Redding a hidden gem or a place to think twice about? Well, the honest answer is it just kind of depends on you and your lifestyle. It's hot, it's sunny, it has a strong civic identity, the job market is smaller, the nightlife is calmer, but it also offers space, nature, short commutes, and a slower, grounded rhythm that a lot of people are craving right now. Now, I have grown up here my entire life. This is home. It's definitely not perfect, but the lifestyle and affordability we've been able to find here has been what has helped us plant our roots and invest in a city that keeps growing. If you're thinking about moving here and you want to talk through neighborhood, price points, or what daily life really feels like, reach out. I would love to help you navigate it. And I always tell people, if you're considering, moving to Redding, come visit during the summertime, maybe around July or August, so you can really feel that summer heat, as well as the wintertime, so you can explore what options you have in the wintertime. Because like I said, this is a great place that I love to call home, but it is not for everybody. I hope this episode was helpful and really just understanding some things that you should consider if you're considering Redding. But make sure you like this video, drop a comment below, tell me what matters most to you in a city like Redding. Is it the climate, the politics, affordability, lifestyle, or is it everything? And don't forget to hit the subscribe channel as we post weekly updates about Redding and the housing market as a whole. As always, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.